Well, hey there. Happy Tuesday. Well, I hope that you're kind of finding some way to stay sane in this unusual time period. It's really unreal, to say the least. And I hope that you're finding some grace and some ways to maybe just reinvent yourself. But today, what I want to chat with you about is food security, kind of changing the way we shop and the way we plan for meals. I know this has been a big transition for us, but there were things that we already had in place, and I just feel like it was a big blessing that I kind of got the signal, that I feel like I got the signal from God when I did. So that kind of happened for me the week before the kids went on spring break, which was, I think it was like Thursday, March 12th. I believe it was that week right there, because yeah, they were out for spring break, and then they've been out for 2 weeks now. So that week was when I went out just looking for some toilet paper, and that's also, so that weekend was when, between that Thursday and that weekend was when we knew that we really had to shift gears, because as you know, I share often here on Tuesdays what our meal plan is for the week, because typically that's what I do, is I make a meal plan every week and I shop based on that. So towards the end of the week, it can look pretty barren in my refrigerator. Now, there's different times in life where we'll get some things stocked up freezer-wise, if you will, and pantry-wise for Costco, but we haven't done that in a while. So I really didn't have much of a backup. So going into that weekend, we normally shop on Sundays, but we made a plan to do everything on Saturday because it just seemed like things were getting progressively worse at the grocery stores. And I've got, anywhere from 6 to 7 people to feed at any given time. And I just can't run that risk of not being able to access foods. Now, like I said, we've got an extreme backup plan. Back when I was selling gold, those people had me so concerned about so many geopolitical situations that we made a pretty big investment, probably the year that we got married, in some kind of emergency food. So we got several of these buckets for our family, and they've got this bucket is from Wise Company, which they don't have any stock on these right now on Amazon. Maybe you could reach out to Wise directly. But I definitely want to encourage you, for when this is over with, maybe for now, for the worst case scenario, is to invest in a little bit of emergency backup food. And so this has got 52 servings, and it's got everything from, so it's mostly dried foods. All you have to do is add water. There's an orange drink in here. There's a whey milk alternative in here. There's breakfast cereals in here. And then there's 4 different kind of lunch dinner servings. And they're just in packets like this. And like I said, they've got a major shelf life, and you can quick cook it in 15 minutes. And we've actually eaten some of it before when we went camping. My husband and I have taken it just to try it out. We've tried it out around here. And our belief is that even if nothing catastrophic happens, it's a good idea to have some worst case scenario food backup. And that's, when my husband was here, not my husband, when my nephew Ashton was here a couple months ago, we brought out a bucket and showed it to Ashton. Ashton is looking to be a husband. He's looking to be the head of a household. So for me, I feel like Ashton needs to be prepared to take care of his family. So I told him that he and his fiance needed to get a couple of these buckets. And again, it's not worst, calamities of the world today could be flood. They could be, something like this where you know, right now we can go to grocery stores, but if for some reason it got to a point where we couldn't, what about job loss? You know, you have an unexpected job loss, or you have a big bill come up and you just don't have any way to get groceries that week. Well, if you've got something like this, it might not be the yummiest thing, it might not be the tastiest thing that you want, but it's food. So that we know that we have this, but otherwise, this is our worst case scenario. You know, this is a kind of an extreme thing. And over time, we supplemented this. We've got canned foods out there. We've got canned meats out there. We regularly supplement and cycle seasonings and spices into this backup so that we can make this stuff taste good. So we've always had a worst case scenario plan, but to me that needed to stay in that position. Just because the grocery stores were going all crazy did not mean that we had to bring out our worst case scenario. So that weekend, because as we went through, you know, we started out at the farmer's market that weekend because I really wanted to make sure that, one, I was supporting local farmers, and that two, I was getting access to fresh vegetables because I'd already seen so many things being wiped out of the grocery stores. So then we went to grocery store where we usually shop, which is Fry's, and you know, we're going through Fry's and there's like no pastas, no canned vegetables, and just extreme shortages because of so much panic buying. So it's like immediately within a couple of days, my mentality and the way that I looked at shopping and buying foods shifted away from how I shop for food and more into the way that my mom shopped for food. Because my mom pretty much always used the same basic staples. She used a lot of canned vegetables and canned foods like that and frozen meats, but she always kind of used the same standard things over and over. So instead of her planning a meal out every week, she knew what she had in her cabinets. And if she needed to go to the grocery store, it was to restock what was needed in those cabinets, whether, you know, no matter what it was. And maybe that was ground beef. But knowing that from my mom made it easy for me to turn on a dime. So in the couple of times after that I went out to the stores, I went out one early morning the next week. What I was then doing is thinking about shopping from a staples perspective. Like, what could I do with these staples if I had them in my freezer or in my pantry or in my refrigerator? And that has pretty much been my thought process from here going forward. So over the course of that weekend and the weekend after that, so that's like the week of March 16th and stuff, when Arizona was actually, or when our schools in Arizona were actually on spring break. So I just slowly collected meats, everything from, you know, we don't eat chicken, so everything from good quality chorizos to good quality pork, brats and ground beef, just whatever I could get. If I could get a pound here, 2 pounds, I'd get 2 pounds the next couple of days. So that's what our thought process has been on the basics of keeping our food stocked, because we just don't see an opportunity. I mean, my husband says that the grocery stores are beginning to look better, like there's bread on the shelves and there's tons of meat out, whereas there wasn't, you know, 2 weeks ago. But from my perspective, we just don't have that luxury of doing one weekly shop. And so now I've got a good stash of things, and plus I took some steps that I'd like to encourage you to take. And one that I mentioned was the farmers markets. We made a choice to do 2 things, and that's one, we're trying to shop farmers markets as much as we can for our produce. Now, I'm kind of running into an issue with that because the farmers market that's closest to me, that's over here in Peoria, we went that weekend. It seemed like nothing in the world was going on there. The second weekend, after the whole world is freaking out and every farmers market in town is taking social distancing precautions, this farmers market still looked like a fair last summer. You know, you're fighting through throngs of people. I've got a mask on, I've got gloves on, and all these other people mostly don't, and they're out with their children, and it was very crowded, and we got in and out in 15 minutes, okay? Now, this week I saw on Facebook that they were supposed to have distancing between the vendors, and only food vendors, but there was a little bit of distancing, but the people weren't distancing. I mean, the vendors were spread out, but there was nothing like what I hear about the Uptown Phoenix market, where you have to stand 6 foot back from the vendor, and when you're in line, there's large gaps. But that's not the way it was over here at this market in Peoria, and I don't want to go there anymore. So the first thing I'd recommend is if you don't have good access to farmers markets, you don't want to go to a farmers market, or you don't feel like your farmers markets are safe places to be, what I would encourage you to do, and what I'm doing right now, is I'm looking to connect with my local food supply chains and work with them and purchase from them and support them, and in turn support my family and our food needs. So right now I'm looking for a CSA, which is, I think, a community supported agriculture is what it's called. So a lot of CSAs work where it's you actually playing a role in helping that farmer get their crops planted. So if you're not in Arizona, I don't know exactly how they work in Arizona, but in other places, like when I lived in Arkansas, that means that you're actually helping the farmer start his crops. So you sometimes might prepay your CSA fees before the growing season starts, and then that guarantees you every single week a box of produce from that farmer, from that grower, of whatever they've got growing at the time. And some of them get pretty fancy. Some of them might have milk in them. Some of them might have eggs and flour, bread. So I don't want to go to the farmer's market anymore. I might go to Uptown, the Uptown Phoenix market, and it's only because I want to go and pick up a box. I'm looking at Blue Sky Organics. They're closer to me. They're out here at Litchfield Park. They've got 2 or 3 different CSA box options, and they have also got like just a single box order. So it's like if you're not already a part of their CSA. So I really want to encourage you to do some research on CSAs in your area that can get you a box of produce that's coming to your house every week. Now, it's probably not going to be the box of produce that I want. I mean, when I go to the farmer's market, I'm typically getting about the same thing. I'm getting some lettuces, some tomatoes, some mushrooms, some peppers, all those kind of things. So you're gonna have to get a little creative with what comes in your box, but I really think that that's a good way to keep good, healthy vegetables on your table, especially if we have any limitations in the store. And the limitations are really what got under my skin, especially when it came to meat, because I buy really high quality meat, okay? So if all these people are panic buying and there's limited access to meat, that also means there's limited access to quality. And because of that, we actually made the decision to purchase some beef from a local cattle company here, and they're actually out in Queen Creek. It's called Perry Cattle, and I want to show you real quick. I got to meet the owner, and we took the girls out. We got to see the cows. So I'm going to jump over there real quick so you can meet Alicia and learn a little bit about Perry Cattle. So I'm out here in a part of this series about talking about food and what we're doing as far as food goes. We're out here at Perry LLC. They're a little family-owned ranch out here in Queen Creek, and we're here because we're buying some meat from them today. So here in just a second, I'm going to introduce you to Alicia Perry. She's the owner. Her and her husband own Perry Cattle Company, and we're going to get to meet her assistant Laura, and we're going to take a look around at the cows while we're out here picking up our meat from them. So I'll tell you more about that here in a little bit after we meet Alicia, maybe back at home. So this is Alicia, and we're trying to stay away from each other because we're socially distancing. So this is about 3 weeks. But Alicia, you guys have got a great operation going on down here. How long have you guys been doing this?
So we started raising cows for beef just a few years ago. We started off with a couple of restaurant partners. Four Peaks Brewery is our biggest one. About 85% of it actually goes to them. And then about a year ago, we broke into selling it direct to consumers. And then actually, you mentioned everything that's going on in the last few weeks. We've seen a huge change in our business model, and we've released most of our restaurant inventory to consumers. So people are buying the beef, stocking their freezers, and getting really high quality local beef right to their homes now. We're even doing delivery. So.
That's awesome. I was, when I keep thinking about the reasons why we decided to do this, the biggest one was, besides being like solvent for our families, it's like as the supply goes down, the quality of what I can pick goes down in the store. Do you think a lot of people are on that same wavelength?
Yeah, I do. I've noticed there's a lot more interest in it lately, and for us, that's one of the biggest struggles, is kind of educating people on how beef is raised and where it comes from and how important that is. So for example, most of the grocery store beef that you get, it's raised in really big feed yards that are, you know, really crowded. They're kind of going by industry standard age and weight charts instead of getting out here and spending time with the cows and seeing how they're progressing and how they're growing, and choosing them when they're actually well marbled and ready for processing. So yeah, the quality is going to be really variable, and the way they're raised is going to be something you probably aren't going to be able to find out much about when you're buying it from, you know, who knows where. But for us, you know, we raise about 25 to 30 a year is all right now, and my husband and I come out, we see the cows every day, we choose them when they're ready, we don't use hormones or antibiotics. But we do still grow them all the way to prime quality, which takes a really long time.
Right.
It takes a lot of care, it takes a lot of attention to do it that way.
Right.
But it's worth it.
And it doesn't stop there either. Like once you actually pick the cow and stuff, there's still a whole process after that. It's not going right into setting that up for your consumer either, right?
No, you're right. Actually, we tried out about every processor in the state, and there aren't a whole lot. And the one we ended up selecting, it's because he does a really good job too. So once the cow is processed, we dry age the beef for 21 days before it's touched again.
21 days. 21 days. That's
Yep.
an extra 21 days of care that goes into this beef.
That's correct, but it makes a big difference in the flavor and the tenderness in particular. Now you have some shrinkage, so we lose a little bit of beef, but to us, again, it's worth it because the beef you have left is so good.
Right. We're excited and also scared that once we go peri cattle, we won't go back.
You won't. You won't. Actually, we went into a steakhouse just a few months ago that we used to love before we started doing this, and I ordered a ribeye, and I was so excited, and it came out, and I was like, we used to think this was good.
Right. Need to talk to the guy back there buying the meat, huh?
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be hard to go back. You're right about that.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for letting us come out and check things out. I'm going to show you guys the cows that they've got so you can see that it's a small little family. And thanks so much, like I said, for letting us come out and visit you. I know the girls are having a great time and we're excited to try your meat.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming out.
Okay, so that was a really cool experience. And in the midst of that, there's also like a butcher down in, I think it's like kind of on the edge of Avondale, kind of South Phoenix, near the 10. There's a butcher down there that you can buy bulk meats from. There's butchers and cattle people north of here. But just get on the internet and do some research and find you some local meats. Find some local produce that doesn't require you decreasing the quality of food that you want your family to be consuming. And it gives a way for you to support your local community, support your local growers, keep money revolving through your local economy, and have wholesome things for your family to eat. Now, if you're in Arizona, another thing that I want to cue you into is it's called like the Borderland Foods. It's a food rescue because it's just astronomical, the numbers that we see when it comes to the amount of food that goes into landfill. So this Borderlands Food Rescue, they have a way to collect up tons of food that is just about on the edge. And you can go, and they have locations all over the valley, and you pay $12 and you get like 70 pounds of produce. Now, and a lot of it is in really good condition, but a lot of it needs to be processed into something else. So 75 pounds of food is a lot of food. You're gonna get tomatoes, you're gonna get cucumbers, you're gonna get some kind of fruits and vegetables. And like I said, either you and your family can process that together, cook up some tomato sauces, freeze that up. You know, there's a lot of different things that you can do to get into preserving foods that'll make that worth your purchase, or team up with your neighbors or some of your extended family to split that up and share the wealth of that food haul. But I think it's really, really important for us right now to have more food security. And you know, I garden. So yesterday, that's what my video was about, is if you, more than anything, I think everybody needs to be growing something right now. So if you want to check out that video, I talked to you about how easy it is to just get some lettuce set up. And maybe the lettuce will be like a gateway into a tomato plant, and that tomato plant might be a gateway into something else. But my plan from here on out is I'm going to continue to get the staples that I need from the store. I don't have anybody locally that I can get bananas from right now. So I need bananas from the store. And I'm making bread. I'm making bread, you know, but I'm not making enough bread to keep up with the supply. So, but my plan, like I said, and what I want to encourage you to do is look into and research your local food supplies. Now, Perry Cattle, and I know another one, I think it's Ribsa Farms out in the East Valley. Those are food producers that typically sell to restaurants. And so that's something to click into, is that all those awesome growers that you used to go eat at all the restaurants that had their food, a great way that you can continue to support that farmer is to buy directly from him now. Because Perry Cattle, for example, they sell mostly to a lot of restaurants here in the valley, but now they're redirecting a lot of that meat to just individual consumers like you and I. So you can get some better deals. You can continue to support those local food supply chains. And because in the end, when things pop back up together, we don't want our farmers to have no food. We don't want, because they abandoned their crops, you know, we don't want the cattle ranchers not to have beef for us because they didn't have the money, they didn't have the things to keep their chain going over there. So I just want to put those bugs in your ear, is to, besides thinking about all the other craziness with this, think about your food security and think about what you need to do to continue to shift and flow with this situation that we're going to be in, because it looks like we're going to be hanging out at home for a good stretch of time here. And I think it's either the USDA or the CDC right now that's recommending that you have at least 2 weeks worth of food. Do you have that right now? And if not, then I definitely want to encourage you to think about ways that you can start supplementing that and support your local food supplies chains as much as you can. I hope this is helpful to you. I'll put some links down in the description for like the Borderlands Food Rescue, Perry Cattle, the Blue Sky Organics. I'll put a link to Ribsa Farms, but it's not that difficult. You know, Google in your area produce CSA boxes, local farmers CSA boxes, the name of your city, Phoenix, Arizona, CSA box. Google those kind of words. And like I said, work to connect with the people that are locally making your food. And does that mean that maybe sometimes I'm spending a little bit more money? It does. But those growers and those farmers, they need that money right now, and I don't mind giving it to them. So I'll save money another day. Well, I hope that this was encouraging to you, and I hope that it gives you kind of some ideas of some ways that you can ensure your food security, some ways that you can maybe have some relief with trying to figure out keeping the food supply going. I've got an order this week because I don't even want my husband going into the grocery store very much anymore. He's an essential worker, so that means that he's the only person that leaves the house really. And so I'm even doing something new with doing one of those grocery pickup orders for, like I said, the things that I can't find at the farmer's market or with my local beef suppliers, because I got my beef and I got my freezer pretty well stocked right now. I just need ongoing produce. So hope you have the best day ever, and I hope you've got a lot of grace and joy in your life. And if there's any way that I can bless you, please let me know down below, and even if that's just prayers and a kind word. Have a great day.